So Semaphore has this this new poll out, and it is devastating. So they're asking young voters how they feel and what they care about and things of that nature. And this is a wake-up call. Let's say this. It's a wake-up call to the older generations and to the political establishment as to how young people are feeling. So look at this. Quote, a dying empire led by bad people. Poll finds young voters despairing over U.S. politics. Wow. So they say here, America's jaded youth vote. Answer whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. It doesn't matter who wins elections. Nothing changes. Strongly agree, 20%. Somewhat agree, 28%. So we're at 48% says it doesn't fucking matter who wins the elections. Then you have 26% say, I neither agree nor disagree. So that's sort of like, I don't know. Somewhat disagree, 13%. Strongly disagree, 13%. So that's only 26% say they disagree with this notion. In other words, more people are saying, look, it doesn't matter who wins, than there are people who are saying it matters who wins. Wow. Now look, at a moment like this, when you look at national politics, any reasonable person can understand this sentiment. When you have Joe Biden arming and funding a genocide in Gaza, and Donald Trump promising, I'm going to arm and fund it even harder and cheerlead Israel even more as they carpet bomb babies, it feels very dire. It feels like your options are bad and worse, gross and more gross. So, I mean, I can understand where that comes from. I don't think it's exactly true, because especially when you look at the state and the local level, I think on that level, Democrats are just a zillion times better. And there's no comparison at all. But I can understand this perspective at the federal level, given that people feel like the government is just not working for them. Young voters overwhelmingly believe that almost all politicians are corrupt and that the country will end up worse off than when they were born, according to new polling from Democratic firm Blueprint, obtained exclusively by Semaphore. By the way, this is the first generation where this is a thing, where this sentiment is a thing, where people feel like, of course my parents are better off than I'm going to be. It used to be the exact opposite. This used to be the definition of the American dream. You can feel like, yeah, however rough they had it, we're going to have it better, right? We're going to work towards the future. It's going to be beautiful. Now it's a deep, dark pessimism that's over everybody's head, and understandably so. The sour mood points to potential trouble for Joe Biden, who is struggling with Gen Z and younger millennials in polls, older millennials too, in polls compared with 2020, and needs to convince them he can be relied on to improve their lives. As part of the online poll of 943 people aged 18 to 30 years old, registered voters, Blueprint asked participants to respond to a series of questions about the American political system. 49% agreed to some extent that elections in the country don't represent people like them. That's half saying that. 51% agreed to some extent that the political system in the U.S. doesn't work for people like me. And 64% backed the statement that America is in decline. I'm actually surprised it's only 64%. At this point, I feel like that's an 80% banger. A whopping 65% agreed either strongly or somewhat that nearly all politicians are corrupt and make money from their political power. Only 7% disagreed with that. In other words, the jig is up, bro. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows that the politicians are deeply grotesque and disgusting and corrupt and bought off and doing the bidding of the donors and not doing the bidding of the people. Quote, I think these statements blow me away. The scale of these numbers with young voters. Evan Roth-Smith, Blueprint's lead pollster, told Semaphore, young voters do not look at our politics and see any good guys. They see a dying empire led by bad people. What a devastating quote, man. By the way, I have a bunch of things I'll show you here in a second, but the one I forgot to pull up, which you've seen before, is that chart which shows generational wealth. And basically, like, the boomer generation has all the fucking wealth. Silent generation still has a decent amount. And then Gen X has very little, and millennials have basically fucking nothing, right? You think that feeds into this a little bit? You think that feeds into this? That the economic situation of younger people in this country is fucking devastating? While 45% of those polled said their own lives would be either a lot or a little bit better than their parents, the same wasn't true for how they felt America as a whole is doing. So that's interesting. 45%. That's less than half. Said their lives will either be a little or a lot better than their parents. It's less than half. 54%, a number that included a solid mix of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, believe the country is going downhill. Majority say the country is going downhill. The data also found the COVID-19 pandemic has left a lasting bad taste in the mouths of young voters. 51% of those polls said they were happier before the COVID-19 pandemic. 77% said that the event changed the country for the worse, and 45% said they feel less connected to friends and acquaintances compared with 5 years ago. Step one is more fully admitting that people are hurting concerning young voters and all voters, particularly around the economy and inflation, and that we're doing something about it. That is not all roses, and communicating that really, really strongly that we don't think everything is great. Well, that is the Democratic strategy. The Democratic strategy is to say, what the fuck are you bitching about? The unemployment rate is low. The stock market is high. Shut the fuck up. The unemployment rate is low and the stock market is high. What more do you want from us? That's literally what the Democrats' message is. And by the way, just to be clear, the Republicans, when they're in power, do the same thing. If the stock market is up and the unemployment rate is low, they brag like a motherfucker, as if that's the end-all be-all and that proves that everybody's happy and everything's hunky-dory. I got news for you. That's not how it works. The stock market is a reflection of how the wealthiest Americans are doing. The unemployment rate, while it being low, is definitely a good thing. How many of those people who have jobs are working in the gig economy and they have to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to pay their fucking bills, and they're massively underemployed? That's a large chunk. And people just pretend like that doesn't exist. Like, oh, just the unemployment rate being low is so good in and of itself that everybody's going to think the economy's great. That's not the fact. That's not the reality. So again, I want to reiterate, man. A dying empire led by bad people. If there's any quote to take away from this, it's that right there. This is how young people feel. So let's dive into that. Why is that? 44% of Americans can't pay an unexpected $1,000 expense from savings. 44%. By the way, when you go to young people, I'm sure that number's even higher. Look at this. A majority, 65% of Americans, this is from 2023, say they live paycheck to paycheck, according to CNBC and SurveyMonkey's recent Your Money International Financial Security Survey. 58% of Americans consider themselves to be living paycheck to paycheck. So you got 2 numbers there, 65 and 58. I've seen some as high as 78%. 100 million Americans have healthcare debt. Again, I want to reiterate, all of these numbers I'm giving you for the whole country, it's higher among young people. Like, it's a higher percentage among young people. But 100 million Americans struggling with healthcare debt. An investigation published Thursday reveals that healthcare debt is far more pervasive in the U.S. than previously known, currently impacting 41% of U.S. adults and more than 100 million people across the country. 41%. Medical bills, by the way, are the number 1 cause of bankruptcy in this country. It's not a thing that other developed countries have to deal with. We have to deal with it here. How many times have we discussed this Princeton study? Princeton study says the U.S. is an oligarchy and not a democracy. And they go on to explain, when you look at, if you poll people on the issues, if the majority of the American people in the bottom 80% of the economic distribution, if they prefer a certain policy perspective, the government does not vote in that direction. They don't do it. But if the wealthy and the elite want them to vote in a certain direction, they almost always vote in that direction. So in other words, the government is only representative for the wealthy and the elite. For the overwhelming majority of the people, regular people, working class people, they don't vote how they want you to vote. I wonder why young people are pissed off. Remember this? 78 members of Congress have violated a law designed to prevent insider trading and stop conflict of interest. Now, by the way, this law, the Stock Act, it just makes it so they have to report on their crimes. Hey, I bought this stock, I bought that stock, I sold it, I did this, I did that. They just have to report the crimes they're committing. In fact, it's not technically a crime for somebody in Congress to invest, to make money based off their insider knowledge that they definitely have. That's why you have Nancy Pelosi and all these, it's totally bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. They beat the market by a colossal margin, way more than your average investor, because they have all the insider knowledge. And then when it got brought up, hey, we should ban people in the House of Representatives and the Senate from investing in the marketplace, they didn't pass it. They didn't even allow it up for a real vote. They only discussed it for a while. Some bills were drafted, but it didn't even get to the floor because they know it's a corrupt ruse. They're getting wealthy off insider information as they screw the rest of the country and don't vote in their interest. So why do young people feel desperate? You guys remember this poll? This is from all the way back in 2016. Vox decided, hey, this Bernie guy, he's sort of taken off. Let's ask people how they feel about his policy positions. And they were shocked at what they found. 73% of Americans want to raise taxes on the wealthy. 66% want to raise taxes on big corporations. 55% want single-payer health care. 59% want free college. There's other polls that show a majority want higher minimum wage, for example. Majority want universal background check on guns. I can go on and on with the progressive positions that are phenomenally popular. We get none of those things. None of those things. You know who supports these policies even more than just your average American? Young people. And I repeat, we've gotten none of these things. So you expect them to be optimistic? You expect them to be hunky-dory? You expect them to feel rosy about the future? When time and time and time again, our preferences are expressed clearly and the politicians go tell us to fuck ourselves. They go give more money to the military-industrial complex. They give more money to Israel to commit a genocide. They hand out money to Wall Street and big oil. They do tax cuts for the rich and billionaires. And we're all sitting there like, can I get a higher minimum wage? Can I get some union jobs? Can I get free health care? Can we get rid of medical debt? We are denied, disrespected, put down, ignored time and time and time again. And you know what? This poll shows it's finally caught up. And young voters are very, very pessimistic. A dying empire led by bad people. We're watching it unfold in real time. And ain't no amount of putting a lipstick on the pig is going to change this, man. You could scream till the cows come home about how great you think the economy is and how high the stock market is and how low the unemployment rate is. And you could talk about that all day long. You know, talk about the evilness of Trump, which I agree. He's evil. You could do that. Is it going to make an impact? Is it going to land? Is it going to win elections? Is it going to improve the country? Is it going to make the lives of the young people equal to or better than that of their parents? No. The corruption has rotted this system out. It really has. All the billionaires, all the lobbyists, all the corporations, military-industrial complex, big oil, all these donors that have bought our political system and rigged it in their favor. The chickens are now coming home to roost, man. And young people see right through it, and you can't pull the wool over their eyes anymore. All right, guys, that's the show. I love you all very much. Everybody, sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends. Definitely tune in. The link's below, by the way. We have Norm Finkelstein on tomorrow. We're going to be going deep on Israel and Gaza and the ICC and the ICJ and all that stuff. So definitely support Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. That's below. You can support the show on Patreon here. That's below as well. Or you can tip on YouTube with the thanks button. And that's all I got for you. Subscribe to the channel. Love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.